A strong hook is the most important part of any story. Even if the themes and narratives are great, without a solid foundation, the story falls apart. The hook sets the tone and tells us what to expect moving forward. Most stories fail at this. Attack on Titan is one of the few that gets it right. In the first episode, it sets up everything: the world, the stakes, and the goal. Humanity's trapped behind the walls, Titans are a real threat, and Aaron's mom dies right in front of him. Right after Aaron swears to kill all Titan and take back freedom, it introduces the core theme: freedom versus oppression, without wasting time. The entire story builds from that point forward. Another example is Code Geass. It opened by showing Britannia as a dominant empire and Japan as an occupied state. Lelouch is introduced as someone who hates the system and wants revenge. When he gains the power of Geass, he immediately uses it to start his rebellion. The show makes it clear from the start: this is about fighting against oppression and power, and Lelouch is willing to do anything to win. But the one I want to talk about today is Naruto. Its exposition stands out. It clearly sets the foundation and the tone of the story. I'm going to break this into two parts: the first chapter and the first arc. We'll look at how the prologue sets up the story's main themes. I'm focusing on three specific themes: acknowledgement, legacy, and breaking the cycle. These themes are introduced early and drive the rest of the story. Let's break them down. Before we go into it, I would really appreciate if you guys could like and subscribe. It really helps me out and shows me you guys like these type of videos. I remember how well this chapter set the tone of the story. The key idea it focused on was acknowledgement, what it really means. Naruto was a mischievous child, and that behavior ties directly into his fighting style later on. Since he was isolated, he had to find creative ways to get people to notice him. That mindset carries into battle. For example, his plan against Zabuza was unexpected and caught even a high-level Jonin off guard. You see the same thing with how he uses shadow clones, especially in the Uzumaki barrage. He takes something basic and turns it into something innovative and unique. This behavior also ties into Naruto's view of the shinobi world. He isn't someone shaped by its rules. After seeing how broken the system is, especially through his encounter with Haku and Zabuza, he rejects it. He says he'll create his own ninja way. This moment is important. It's not just about wanting to be different, it's Naruto refusing to become a tool like Haku or a killer like Zabuza. He chooses a path based on protecting others and being acknowledged as himself, not as a weapon. This is the start of Naruto's core belief: that ninjas should be more than tools used by the system, and that belief shapes every major decision he makes going forward. Although this idea falls under the theme of breaking the cycle, it connects to the idea of acknowledgement. Naruto doesn't just reject the system because it's flawed, he rejects it because it denies people their worth. The way the system treated Haku and Zabuza showed him that being a ninja often means losing your identity. Naruto's response is personal. He wants to be acknowledged for who he is, not turned into a tool. So when he chooses a new ninja way, it's not just about change, it's about creating a path where people are seen, heard, and valued. That's why acknowledgement is at the core of his rebellion. The next thing I want to talk about was dreams. Dreams in Naruto represent freedom and individuality. Haku never had a dream of his own. His life was defined by Zabuza's goal. He didn't live for himself, he lived to be useful. That's why he called himself a tool. His sacrifice isn't heroic in a normal sense, it's tragic. He never got the chance to choose his own path. Naruto, on the other hand, dreams of becoming a Hokage because it's his way of taking control of his life. It's not about peace or power, it's about proving he matters. His dream is a direct response to being ignored and rejected. Sasuke's case shows this from another angle. His original dream of revenge is driven by pain and loss, but by the end he gives that up, not because he wants acknowledgement, but because Naruto's persistence reminds him he can still choose a different path. So dreams in Naruto aren't about acknowledgement itself, they show whether someone is trapped by the system or free to live for themselves. When someone sacrifices their dream or never had one, it often shows how deeply the shinobi world has broken them. It's important to know whenever acknowledgement comes up in Naruto, it's always tightly connected to breaking the cycle. That connection leads on to the next point, the distinction between true acknowledgement and surface level acknowledgement. To break this down, we need to go back to chapter 1. Naruto wanted to be strong because he believed the Hokage, the most acknowledged person in the village, had everything he lacked. His goal wasn't just about strength, it's about being seen and accepted by the people who had rejected and isolated him his whole life. But here's the problem. This version of acknowledgement is shallow. It's acknowledgement from people who never gave him a chance. Naruto doesn't realize this until his conversation with Haku. Haku asks him a simple question: why are you doing this? Is it for yourself or for someone else? That line shakes Naruto. No one had questioned his dream before. Up to this point, his goal to become Hokage had never been challenged beyond the surface. Haku forces him to think deeper. Then Haku asks again, is there someone special in your life? This leads to a flashback. Haku chained up alone in the street, then Zabuza appears and we see a silhouette looming over Haku like a demon. What follows is one of the most foundational lines in Naruto. When people are protecting something truly special to them, they can become as strong as they need to be. That's when it clicks for Naruto. He remembers 3 key moments: Kakashi saying he won't let his comrades die, Inari's father standing up to protect the village, and Naruto himself stepping up to protect Iruka from Mizuki. In all these moments, the strength didn't come from chasing acknowledgement, it came from protecting someone who truly acknowledged them. That's when Naruto finally understands why he was able to get stronger, not because he wanted to be seen, but because he wanted to protect Iruka, someone who had acknowledged him first. That's when he's able to summon 2,000 shadow clones and beat up Mizuki. This is where it connects back to breaking the cycle. Naruto realizes that chasing acknowledgement from people who rejected him only kept him trapped inside the same broken system that dehumanized Haku and Zabuza. When he shifts his goal from being seen by everyone to protecting the few who truly see him, that starts to break the cycle. He stops trying to earn the approval of a system that never cared and builds the strength from real connection instead. It's not just a turning point for his dream, it's the start of Naruto living by a completely different code, one that breaks away from what a shinobi world teaches. This is why the moment after the pain arc is so important. Naruto is finally acknowledged by everyone in the village, the thing he wanted from the very beginning. Recognition, praise, respect. He finally gets it, but something is off. When someone asks him for an autograph, he hesitates, he doesn't sign it. That small moment matters. It shows that even though he got what he wanted, there was still something unresolved. This comes back later when he's taken to the waterfall of truth. There he comes face to face with something he had been ignoring, his own emotions, his anger, his hatred, his frustration, all the pain from being rejected, isolated, and chasing acknowledgement his whole life. He had buried it, pretending it didn't exist. And now he's forced to acknowledge it. That's the real meaning behind the waterfall. It's not just a trial, it's the point where Naruto has to stop lying to himself. He has to accept the damage that came from needing acknowledgement so badly, the damage that came from being a Jinchuriki, the damage that came from his isolation. And once he accepts it, he moves forward, not to chase acknowledgement, but to protect others. Now to skip back all the way to the end of the fight with Haku. Here Haku defines what a special person truly means. He says the most painful thing in the world is accepting that you're completely alone. His father killed his own mother after learning she had a Kekkei Genkai, and when Haku showed the same ability, his father turned on him too. From that point on, Haku was truly alone in the world. He had no one, so when Zabuza took him in, he attached his entire existence to Zabuza. That meant Haku's sense of identity, self-worth, and purpose were all wrapped up in serving someone else. Without Zabuza's acknowledgement, Haku felt like he had no reason to exist. He gave up his own dream, his individuality, and even his future, just to be useful. That's how broken he truly was. As Naruto listened, he asked Haku why he followed Zabuza. Why is he so important? Haku explains he once was precious to someone, and after losing that, he couldn't bear that loneliness again. It was that loneliness that made him attach himself to Zabuza. Naruto relates to this completely. He had been isolated, he also wanted acknowledgement. Except for him, it was the entire village. Haku calls this out and then says something that challenges Naruto's view. What if there was someone who did more than just acknowledge you? Someone who could accept even the parts of you that everyone else hates. Someone who didn't just like the surface, but sees and embraces your entire existence. That's a different level of acknowledgement. And this ties back to the waterfall of truth. The reason why Naruto's hatred had built up so deeply was because he had never truly been acknowledged, not by the villagers and not even by himself. He suppressed his own anger, pain, and hatred just to keep smiling and chasing the Hokage title. That created an imbalance inside of him. At the waterfall, he had no choice but to confront it all. His dark self, full of rage and bitterness, forces him to stop running. The turning point is when Naruto says, "You need to be me." He accepts the part of himself that he hated. This acceptance becomes a deeper definition of acknowledgement, not just being seen by others, but being honest and whole within yourself. Going back to the conversation with Haku, Naruto remembers Iruka. Iruka acknowledged the Nine Tails inside of him, the very thing the entire village hated. And despite that, he still accepted Naruto. That was the first moment Naruto felt truly seen for everything he was. Haku says he was happy too, and Naruto understands. When someone accepts the part of you that everyone else rejects, it gives you a place to belong. It saves you. That's what Haku was with Zabuza, and what Naruto had with Iruka. But here's the key difference. Haku's acknowledgement came with a cost. He had to erase himself to receive it. He lived only as Zabuza's tool. His entire existence was tied to someone else's purpose. His happiness depended on how useful he was, not who he was. The moment Zabuza no longer needed him, Haku felt like he no longer had a reason to live. It was conditional acknowledgement. You matter, but only if you serve me. Naruto's acknowledgement, on the other hand, allowed him to grow. Iruka accepted him fully. Even knowing about the Nine Tails, he didn't ask Naruto to change or become someone else. That gave Naruto the freedom to be himself and chase a dream that was truly his. Iruka's acceptance wasn't tied to what Naruto could do for him. It was rooted in simply seeing Naruto as a person. And to even understand this more clearly, we need to see Zabuza's acknowledgement of Haku because it directly mirrors how the shinobi system operates. Zabuza didn't see Haku as a person. He saw him as a tool, useful, loyal, and silent. That's exactly how the shinobi system trains ninjas to be. Suppress your feelings, follow orders, and complete the mission. Your worth is based on your function, not your identity. So when Zabuza quote-unquote acknowledged Haku, it wasn't real acknowledgement. It was transactional. It said you matter, but only as long as you're useful to me. That's why Haku tied his entire life to Zabuza. That's what the system teaches. Serve someone stronger, erase yourself, and die without regret. And that's why Naruto's reaction to Haku and Zabuza's relationship is so important. He sees the flaw in it. He realizes acknowledgement shouldn't come at the cost of your identity. Iruka's acknowledgement didn't come with conditions. That's the difference. Zabuza's acknowledgement reflected the broken shinobi world. Iruka's acknowledgement pointed towards something new, a way to break from the cycle. The next theme I want to focus on is legacy. It's not as central as acknowledgement, but the way it grows and changes throughout the story is something worth focusing on. The first time this idea appears is during Inari's backstory. His dog was drowning and Inari couldn't save it. He was too scared. Then he gets pushed off and then Kaiza saves him. He teaches Inari something important, not just about courage, but about legacy. If there's something precious to you, no matter how painful or hard it seems, no matter what it costs you, you have to hang in there and protect it with all your strength. You got to risk your life, and even if you do die, the world will be left with proof that there was a man worth living who died. It'd be your legacy. At first it feels like a simple lesson, but this connects directly to some of the most important ideas of Naruto, starting with acknowledgement. Naruto was willing to sacrifice his life to protect Iruka. Kakashi was willing to do the same for Team 7. Kaiza stood up for his beliefs and lost his life for it. Kaku died for Zabuza. All these characters were ready to give up their lives, not for status, but for something they believed in, something or someone they loved. This brings us to the Will of Fire, the idea that the village and most importantly its people are worth protecting, that when you're fighting for others your real strength comes out. But not everyone interprets this Will of Fire the same way. Characters like Danzo represent a twisted version of the Will of Fire, one where the ends justify the mean. He sacrificed others for the quote-unquote greater good, but he did it in secrecy, rooted in control and fear. But then there's Itachi, someone who lived out a darker form of this will. His Will of Fire could be called a quote-unquote black flame, silently burning in the shadows. He protected the village at the cost of his own name, future, and peace. As the story progresses, legacy becomes more than just about sacrifice. It's about passing on your will. This is shown best in Naruto's confrontation with Obito. After Neji dies, Naruto starts to fall apart. He doubts everything, but Hinata reminds him that Neji gave his life willingly. And then Naruto's able to remember people who had done that before. Jiraiya, Minato, Kushina, Itachi, Nagato, all of them entrusted their will to Naruto. This is where legacy becomes a direct answer to Obito. Obito believes that when people die, their existence becomes meaningless, but Naruto proves him wrong. These people may be gone, but their will is still alive in him. Their values, their lessons, and their sacrifices didn't vanish. They were inherited. That's what legacy really is in Naruto. It's when someone's purpose lives on through others. And this idea of legacy even branches off through Madara and Hashirama's conflict, where Hashirama is able to pass his Will of Fire to the village, while Madara becomes the ghost of Uchiha, someone who can't pass his own will and controls people around him. And all of this also ties into the meaning of a shinobi. A ninja isn't someone who fights or kills. A real shinobi is someone who endures for the sake of their purpose. Naruto's understanding of this begins in the pain arc. He decides to kill Nagato and avenge Jiraiya, but at the end he doesn't. He realizes that pain and hatred can change an individual and make you something you aren't. So he chooses to endure, that he won't kill Nagato, that he will believe in Jiraiya, someone who passed his will onto him. This idea also grows when he encounters Sasuke. He says he's willing to die with him if that's what it takes to stop the cycle. It's no longer about just beating the enemy, as Naruto says it. It's about not letting pain change who you are. Then finally, in his last talk with Obito, Naruto says he'll endure all of it for his comrades because that's what it means to be Hokage, not leading in power, but shouldering the pain of your comrades. So legacy in Naruto starts as a personal idea, dying for someone you believe, but it grows into something much bigger, enduring for others, carrying their will, and living in a way that passes something on. That idea comes full circle when we look back at Inari. At the beginning, Inari doesn't believe in heroes. He saw his hero Kaiser executed while no one stepped in to help. That moment shattered his belief in courage and sacrifice. To him, standing up for something only leads to pain, and no one is truly willing to risk their life for others. But then he meets Naruto. At first, Naruto seems just like another loud kid pretending to be strong. Inari lashes out and telling him that heroes aren't real. But Naruto doesn't try to argue. He shows Inari what it means to fight for what matters. Naruto risks his life to protect people he barely knows. He gets back up every time he's knocked down. When he's training for his chakra control, he refuses to let fear or pain stop him, and that's when something changes in Inari. He sees in Naruto the same spirit Kaiser once had, but this time the difference is that Naruto isn't waiting for someone else's approval. He fights it because it's the right thing to do. That inspires Inari. Naruto doesn't just remind him of Kaiser, he revives the will Kaiser tried to pass on. Inari chooses to act. He stands up. Even if the villagers weren't trying to rally against him, he still goes out there to stop and stand for what he believes. The final theme I want to touch on is how to break the cycle. The Land of Ways is the first thing I want to touch on. This is centered on Zabuza, who is one of the first clear victims of the shinobi system. His role in the story isn't just as an enemy, it's as a product of a world that trains people to kill and feel nothing. Zabuza was raised in a system that saw emotional detachment as strength. As a child, he was part of the Old Mist Village graduation exam, one where students have to kill their classmates to pass. And he didn't just pass, he slaughtered every single one of his classmates. From that moment on, he was labeled a demon of the hidden mist, but that title wasn't strength, it was trauma. The system praised him for what it forced him to become. Zabuza learned to survive by shutting off everything: his emotion, his bonds, his sense of self. Kakashi confirms this mindset when he says that shinobis are expected to cut their emotions. Even Sakura, when she thought Sasuke had died, was told to suppress her reaction. This culture of emotional suppression runs deep in the shinobi world. Zabuza is the embodiment of that, and that's where the mask comes in. It's not just a tool for stealth, it's a symbol of his dehumanization. It hides his face, his emotions, and his pain. He wears it as a shield to survive in a world that tells shinobis to be tool, not people. And here's what makes it powerful. Zabuza doesn't take the mask off until after his conversation with Naruto. That moment matters because when Haku dies, Zabuza keeps pretending. He acts cold, he calls Haku a tool, he repeats the same system-driven logic that turned both of them into weapons. But Naruto challenges it. Naruto calls him out, not just as a shinobi but as a person. He tells Zabuza that Haku loved him, that Haku died for him, and Haku wasn't just a tool, he was a human being with a dream. And that's when Zabuza breaks. He takes off his mask for the first and only time, not in battle but in mourning. That's when we finally see Zabuza cry. Something to know here is in the fight with Kakashi, when Haku sacrificed himself, Zabuza for some reason hesitates to cut through Haku. He had taken pride in Haku's ability to be a tool, but when Haku does exactly what Zabuza preached, Zabuza can't capitalize on it. He hesitates. This hesitation was the humanity he had been suppressing. We see this idea in the War arc. Zabuza is revived as a tool under Edo Tensei. That jutsu is the personification of what shinobi were meant to be, emotionless tools. Once again, Haku sacrifices himself in the same manner, but this time Zabuza is able to cut through because he is a tool. Kakashi even notes that last time he couldn't do it, but this time he can. As Zabuza says himself, "I died a human." This shows that the tool ideology is flawed. You can't fully erase your emotions. The cracks were always there in Zabuza's philosophy. It wasn't anything special Naruto said, it was a moment that caught him. He had lost everything: Haku, his ability to use ninjutsu, his deal with Kato, and the money he was going to use to raise a coup against the Mizukage. What Naruto told him was simple but direct. Haku had a dream, he was willing to sacrifice himself for you, but even in death you won't protect him. That's what impacted Zabuza. It wasn't just about the guilt, guilt, it was about the realization that Haku wasn't a tool. He was a person with a dream and his will of his own, and Zabuza hadn't honored that. In the end, Zabuza was finally able to break away from the cycle of shinobi constantly being used and discarded as tools. Gato used Zabuza, Zabuza used Haku, and as Kakashi said, this is the ideal of shinobi, disposable weapons. Zabuza choosing to fight Gato's men with no jutsu, no strength, and no future was his way of valuing Haku. In the same way Haku sacrificed himself for Zabuza, Zabuza does the same. In the end, they were finally able to connect, not as master and tool, but as two people who chose each other. For those still here, there's something important from Fan Book 1 that gives even more meaning to this arc. Kishimoto explained his intention for the series. He said the core theme of Naruto in the first arc was acknowledgement. When he was starting out as a mangaka, he kept getting rejected over and over. He felt invisible. What he wanted more than anything was for someone to acknowledge him. That's what inspired Naruto's story, a boy ignored by everyone chasing acknowledgement, not for fame but to prove that he mattered. And when it came to Zabuza and Haku battle, Kishimoto said that the theme was, can you live without emotions? He knew that if he was going to tell a story about shinobi, he had to deal with the idea of cutting off your emotions, because that's what the ninja system demands, emotional detachment. That's why seeing this from the author's perspective is powerful. It shows us that these characters weren't just written for actions, they were made to express real pain and real struggles. Just throwing a little cool info at you since you stayed. Also, don't forget to subscribe and like. This was the perfect way to start Naruto. It didn't waste time, it immediately showed us what the story was really about. Not just about fights, not just about training, but about more of those human experiences that are core to us, about acknowledgement, emotional pain, and what it means to be shinobi. The Land of Waves introduced the broken systems, characters who were shaped and destroyed by it, and a main character who decided to go against it. Right from the beginning, we saw what happens when people are treated like tools, why acknowledgement matters, and how real strength comes from protecting others, not just winning. And these ideas branch off to many subsets and many sub-themes and eventually circled back together to give us the message of Naruto. But that's for another video. Most anime take time to get serious. Naruto didn't in the first arc, and that's how to start a story.